Hey guys, welcome back to the Pulling Curls podcast. Today on episode 254, we are talking about baby safety. Let's untangle it. Hi, I'm Hilary, a serial overcomplicator. I'm also a nurse, mom to 3, and the curly head behind Pulling Curls and the Pregnancy Nurse. This podcast aims to help us stop overcomplicating things and remember how much easier it is to keep things simple. Let's smooth out those snarls with Pregnancy and Parenting Untangled, the Pulling Curls podcast. This episode is sponsored by Family Routines. If you are looking to do things like baby safety, having routines that help you update your baby safety protocols and really be in a routine, Family Routines is going to help you get there. Family Routines is the course for you. Come get on some great routines with me. Super excited for today's guest. She is a CPST, that's a car seat tech, on TikTok. She is great at helping parents make informed choices, especially about their baby registry. I want to introduce my friend, Dani Morin. Hey, Dani, welcome to the Pulling Curls podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I don't know if people know how we know each other, but we got on TikTok, I think, at the same exact time, like in 2020, the
Yes.
Wild West of TikTok. But I sat next to you at a brand dinner with Aussie Bubs, and it was one of the funnest times. You are absolutely hilarious. I don't know if people know how funny you actually are from your videos. Like, you are so funny. It was one of the funnest nights that I had. So when you asked me to be on the podcast, I was like, automatically, we're going to be talking about baby stuff, but I'm sure we could make it funny.
And you were taking shots of infant formula, so you know it was a good time.
No, that's how you take shots these days as moms. Formula.
No,
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
I could not do it.
It was the toddler formula. It wasn't bad. Anything for the content.
See, that's why.
Didn't they bring out like a shot ski?
Yes, they had like a flight.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
Dani, tell me a little bit about your history, why your heart is in children's safety. I just want people to know just like a snippet of why, because I think that's really important as we go into this.
Yeah, so this gets asked a lot, and I will do a little bit of a trigger warning. Child loss is involved in here, but it is a huge part of my story. I could talk about the logistics and I could talk about my son now. It's been 8 years, but my son, Deacon, my first child, he was strangled by a Baltic amber teething necklace at his childcare. Logistically, I don't know exactly how it happened. The childcare is watching too many people. Two things are true at the same time, right? The necklace was a strangulation hazard and the daycare was not doing their job. And I lost him in October of 2016. Worst, I never thought I'd come out of it. And I decided maybe 2 years into it that I wanted to open up about my story. And this was a hard decision because I put a Baltic amber teething necklace around his neck that I thought helped with teething. I was a very crunchy mom at the time. If you asked me what the AAP was, I would have shrugged and said I didn't know. And these Baltic amber teething necklaces, you know, we do all these things to help our baby. Like, we're desperate to do anything to make our babies feel better, not realizing that some of those things are just pure risk, which we know now. In 2008, a lot of people come to me and be like, didn't you read all the studies? No, those studies came out in 2018 due to my son and other children that were strangled. And those studies came out and proved that Baltic amber teething necklaces serve no purpose. The child's temperature would have to be 392 degrees Fahrenheit for the succinic acid to even release. And your child would not be alive at 392 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's all risk and no benefit. And that's kind of where the messaging is. So those studies came out in 2018. These were very popular in 2014, 15. They're still very popular now, believe it or not. You can't get them on Etsy anymore. You can't get them on Amazon anymore. They're not sold in stores, but there are some boutique owners that will order them from Lithuania and sell them. Like, they're still out there. They're still being sold. So, you know, I try to do my best to warn parents, but I started going on the news. I started getting in parenting magazines and sharing my story, and it wasn't getting me anywhere. And then TikTok came along, and I started just doing TikToks of my pregnancy. I was going to take it to the grave that I had ever lost a child, because I was like, I don't know. I saw how quickly some of these videos had taken off, and I had posted a video about how I had my son. So I DIY'd my son. I ordered sperm from a sperm bank to my home and got pregnant. That's a podcast on its own, if I'm
I
being honest.
I really wanna do a separate one about that. I really do. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a podcast on its own. But, I was met with like 3 types of things, like, a bunch of people being like, "This is wrong, I can't believe you're doing this, like, the American family, blah, blah, blah," like, everyone had so much to say, and I'm like, "Look, I've put so much thought into this," but I also didn't think that people realized I was a single mom prior. I had been a mom before, And then I also had moms coming out and being like, "I am 40 years old, I'm a lawyer," like, I thought I was gonna have to go spend, like, $40,000 on, like, IVF, like, I didn't know this was even an option, so I think I opened up a window of opportunity for moms that where I had messages like, I was literally going to settle for the wrong guy because I wanted to have a baby. Like, I broke up with him. Like,
Mm.
I think I'm going to do this. And I made it very clear in that video. Make sure you have the finances, make sure you have the means. Like, I made it very clear. But I was met with a lot of criticism. And I was like, imagine if I come out and tell people that, hey, I was a mom before, I lost, and then the criticism that I would be met with. And there was a little bit of criticism, and now I post things for a certain reason, but there was a lot of criticism when it comes to, I can't believe that you put that around your child's neck. Didn't you read the studies? Or I got met with, I use this on my child and it's perfectly fine. All 3 of my kids have used this and they're fine. Like, these actually really work. But then I was met with the most comments of, thank you so much. This is getting removed right now. Like, I would not have known this had you not shared your story. And I realized then, like, I will continue to share my story for that third mom. You know what I mean? For those comments of like, thank you so much. Then it got into like, well, if I'm talking about child safety and necklaces, like, what else should I be talking about? So I started sharing more baby proofing tips. I started sharing more on safe sleep, which is also controversial, which I did not realize was
Ooh, get
controversial.
flamed for the safe sleep.
Yeah, the safe sleep. And, I think I was going to make a TikTok actually this week. I think where it gets dangerous is there's a lot of providers or sleep consultants and these experts where they do the meet the mom where they're at mentality. So at some point in their motherhood journey, they have been told, like, I understand that you're doing it. Like, let's try to do it better. Whereas I would rather a provider come to me and be like, this is the statistic. If you sleep with your baby, like, this is the risk that you're putting out there. There'll never be a day that I'm going to tell you that what you're doing is okay. I can feel for the lack of sleep. Like, this has to be so difficult for you.
Mhm.
And I could feel for that. But there will never be a day that I say this is okay, because I've seen too many things. And I think some providers are coming out and being like, well, let's just try, like, and they're like, okay, I'm being it has to be okay, right? Because they're like, so the meet the mom mentality, sometimes even with like the baby proofing and stuff, like, oh, okay, well, just watch your kid then around that one if you don't want to put the hole in the wall, you know? And it's like, we can't be doing that. I think like the meeting the mom mentality for like lactation consultants of really being like, I want you to breastfeed us. I want this to be successful for you. We're having some difficulty and your baby needs to be fed. So like, let's meet in the middle here and come up with like maybe a solution. But maybe that's like a situation. I've breastfed for my kids for 2 years and almost 3 years. So it worked for me. But sometimes I think with the baby proofing and some of these other topics in the sleep, where it's like, we can't just give you a couple options and like they're all okay in some sort of way, So
Yeah, it's tricky.
it gets tricky, but I think validating a mom's feeling of, yeah, I wouldn't want to put a hole in my wall either to put up a baby gate. Like, this sucks. Or like, yeah, no, it sucks not
Right.
sleeping. Like, this stage of parenting sucks. Like, oh my gosh, no, I totally understand where you're at. Like, you're doing everything right now to feed your baby. Like, I think validating them, but also giving out facts is also another thing. So
Yeah, and there's a big difference between how I share information on TikTok and how I talk to my singular patient that had a singular problem, right?
yeah.
So
Mm.
it's tricky,
Hmm.
but TikTok is for everyone.
And it's so hard for me to remember that, because sometimes I think that I will talk singular on some of my TikToks. I've actually, when I became a CPST, so then I became a CPST and I started working with moms in their car seats. We practice like a good, better, best. Like, it's what's taught. And that is not how on TikTok. Like, I am like, this is how it is. So I asked them, how would you address this with the safe sleep thing? Like the good, better, best. They're like, if someone says like, oh, I'm doing the safe sleep 7, you could say like, yeah, I guess that's a safer way, but I will never say that it's safe. It's
Right.
never going to be something that I say is safe. But like, yeah, is it safer than you sleeping on top of your baby? I guess, but I could never say that that is safe. So I'm like, okay, like, cause how do you word that? But with car seats, you have a mom come in and she has her 2-year-old forward facing. And okay, so that's good, right? And maybe the latches were a little loose. So, we tighten those up. Okay, so that's better. But then maybe the mom decides, like, oh, okay, I heard what you have to say about rear facing. I'm going to flip my car seat. Okay, that's the best. But
Right.
legally, she left maybe forward facing with a tighter install. So that's better than how she came. But by doing that, I've kind of changed how I talk on TikTok. I think I was like coming out like, there's nothing you could say about teething necklaces that I'm ever going to be okay with. I still feel that way. But I change, like, there's nothing a mom could say to me that I'm not going to be able to have a comeback, especially on the teething necklaces. But I changed the approach, I feel like, or I'm putting in the effort.
Well, I mean, we are not supporting parents enough in this world, right?
Yeah.
Like, I went back to work at 6 weeks with every single kid. First kid, I went back at 5 weeks. Like, I was tired. And then I would go be a nurse somewhere. God bless those patients.
Yeah. I mean, it's so crazy.
So we got to support mothers more. We have to be the village, including new moms. I see a lot of new moms who are like, well, I can't support other new moms. I'm like, well, that is our village, is we're all supporting each other. I'm not saying you're 2 weeks postpartum taking a meal. I'm saying, you have a 1-year-old, you're now part of the village that's helping all these
Yeah.
new moms. And I am old, so I'm definitely part of the
Yeah, it's
village.
crazy we don't really have that. Like, I've been blessed to have, like, my mom in my life, but I know a lot of people live so far away from their families, you know what I mean? And I could not imagine that, but maybe it's a military situation, so they have this great group of, like, women that act as that. So I've seen different things like that, but I think really validating to moms, like, sometimes I just want my fiance to come home and be like, I realize, like, you had a busy day, like, you did so much today, and I'm like, you just want to be seen. So I understand that moms are like, I just want someone to notice that sleeping is really hard for me right now, and just say, like, I understand
Yeah.
this sucks. You know what I mean? Or the breastfeeding, like, that is hard. Or, just the sleep and I miss my body and, like, I'm in this awkward phase. And like, people just want to be validated and like, hey, me too. I've been there.
Hmm.
Like, you're going to get through this. Like, today's hard, even with grief. Like, when
Yeah.
people open up about their grief journeys or child loss and they're like, hey, I'm having a day. I'm like, today's hard. This is really, I'm going to validate you. This has to be so hard. This is a hard day, because it's like, sometimes I think people just want to be validated.
Yeah. Well, we should definitely say that up front. There are things Dani is going to say on here that Hilary did not do as a parent, because everybody knows my oldest is 24. So a lot of these things we didn't even have or think about. So I'm not shaming you. There is no shame in this episode. This is like, you're doing a good job. I think everyone that's listening to this podcast is doing a good job. Could we do a little bit better? That's what we're finding out today. This isn't like, oh, I'm never going to make it. Yeah, you can make small changes
Small
and make
changes.
a
And
difference.
also, these are not things even that I've done. When I got my CPST certification, I had a CPST instructor check my own car seat and found mistakes. So, I mean, I could go in here and find things that I didn't do with my first that now, like, I know better. So, there's just things that you're not even going to know. I did a TikTok, a couple days ago about the kid in Utah that had the kernel that was playing in the pumpkin patch and he got the kernel. I'm
Right.
like, okay, here's 2 videos of my son also playing in those year after year. I had no idea. Yet I've made videos about why kids shouldn't have popcorn. Like, it's just like sometimes it takes other people's stories to realize, like, oh my gosh. And I feel like the best form of parenting is listening to others' stories and sometimes mistakes. And I shout out to moms that are willing to admit when they've made a mistake to help others, because I wouldn't be the parent I am today if it wasn't for you guys and sharing your stories.
Yeah. And shout out to Dani, because I'm sure it was extremely vulnerable to share that you bought the necklace,
It was gifted to me, but it
Oh,
was
okay.
on my registry. It's something that I wanted, you
Right.
know? So it was the stamp of
Yeah.
approval for the crunchy moms. If you didn't have one, then you were science based. That was not going to be me back then. Now,
Well, all my friends know I'm science based, so they would just
no,
hide
like,
that if I was
it's
around,
so
probably.
funny. And I've made plenty of TikToks. The drastic change, I went from making my own wipes in 2015 with I think I was using like grapeseed oil and like lavender. I mean, I cloth diapered. People like to throw in the breastfeeding as crunchy. I don't, you know what I mean? But I did the barefoot thing. The cloth diapering. I did the essential oils. Like I did all of the hand making of everything. And it was like so stressful to live that lifestyle too. But that Baltic amber teething necklace, that was a stamp of approval where you go into Target and the other like moms are like, yeah, I'm non-toxic too. Like I'm just like, but no, it's just to look back and now I'm so, evidence-based, science-based. I follow people like you. I follow people like Dr. Freehess. I follow all of the pediatricians and thank God for them, right? So yeah, no shame here because I was that mom. Like I've done things right and I've done things wrong and I continue to sometimes do things wrong and I have to learn. So no shame.
Yeah, and I was the one shoving Highland's teething tablets, which are no longer on
Yeah,
the
I
market in my
had
kids.
no,
So we shout out to everybody that's
yeah.
just giving it a whirl.
Yeah, it was someone just did a video on teething and the science behind how teething happens and like the discomfort and what it really is for babies and it was like pretty interesting. I'll have to send it to you. But yeah, it was just
I am not sad. Not sad to not have teethers at my
yeah, I
house.
mean
Yeah.
that I think the best thing that I gave to Rhett was a rolled up cloth. I would freeze like a rolled up cloth and he just that was like the best thing. And I had the teethers and that was the best thing, I swear. People did like the frozen
We did frozen waffles because it would catch the drool.
I attempted the frozen waffle. The
It's
cloth seemed to work
disgusting
the
though.
best, but the cloth also gets the drool, right? So
Yeah, that's true.
so yeah.
Okay, so today we're talking baby proofing. No shame out there if you don't have these things done. And Danny and I were quickly talking about this before. And, even if you have a teenager, like there are different things I'm thinking when she was talking, I was like, I need a teen proof my medicine cabinet, right? There's a reason I probably shouldn't have any oxy anywhere near, right? Because you
Yeah.
just never know. Liquor, things like that. So it's a long range game. So let's talk baby proofing or kid proofing or
Well,
toddler
I
proofing.
love that
Yeah.
you started off with like baby proofing for your teens. And the reason I like that is the one thing that I live by is baby proofing is ongoing. Now, I am not baby proofing certified. So in order to I work with them, but I'm not baby proofing certified. In order to do that, you actually have to own a baby proofing business. And in California, you have to have a contractor's license to do that. So I'll work with them on campaigns they do like tip over awareness and stuff like that. And I'm involved with the baby proofers, but I'm not a certified baby proofer. I don't go into people's homes and baby proof them, but I can provide the information online. So that's what we'll do today. But I love that you talked about your teens and baby proofing because the funniest thing is it's always ongoing. A perfect
Yeah.
example of this is things that you would do before you come home from the hospital and things that you would do when your child kind of steps up to that couch and does a little couch surfing for the first time is going to be completely different. A great example of this is, you come home with your baby, you're maybe like 6 weeks in. All baby does is lay there in the bassinet, right? And put baby to bed, mom and dad grab a glass of wine and some popcorn and have some time to themselves, but a couple months later baby starts scooting around. So the best thing you could do is get down to the baby's level, and what you might find under that couch where your little baby's hand could fit is a popcorn kernel or something else that got under there that you couldn't see, you couldn't really reach, but when you get to their level you could see that and you could reach that. So it's one of those things to constantly do, and before you're a parent you're like, maybe you vacuum under that couch when you move. That would be me. Or maybe it's something you do twice a
Yeah.
year, but when you have a scooter and a crawler, that's going to be something that you're constantly doing, is putting that vacuum device under there and really making sure that there nothing got on under there. But with an infant who's just laying there, that's probably something that you hadn't really thought of before. When we get those babies who are couch surfing, if they could surf your couch, they could surf a toilet. And although we promote putting the toilet locks on the toilets before you come home from the hospital, they're a pain, right? You got to run to the bathroom. You don't want to open it, but you want to make sure that those are on at that time. So I just put them on, get used to it. But, if they could surf that couch, they could certainly surf your toilet. So it's constantly ongoing. When they're getting on their hands and knees, you should also get on their hands and knees. When they're standing up, you should also stand up. And what are they reaching? What could they get into? Do you need to protect any corners at this time because now they're hitting the tables or whatever it is? It's constantly ongoing. So that's my biggest thing. My second biggest thing is that every mom thinks we can't fathom something bad happening to our kids, right? We see things on the news and it's like, hey, that could never be me, right? Kid gets hit on his bike without a helmet or something like that. Like, oh my gosh.
I'm the opposite of that mom.
So, well, and I'm the opposite.
I envisioned every single thing I saw bad in the hospital. I'm like,
So,
well,
because you have this,
why?
like, personal tie to it, right? So, for me, I'm
Yeah,
like, I was the mom sitting in the comfort of my own home watching the news and being like, "That could never happen to me. I feel so bad for that family." And until I was the girl on the news. You know what I mean? And then it's
yeah,
like, wow. And, I just did the Stop the Bleed class, and it was all nurses and doctors in there, and it was so funny how desensitized how not desensitized, but that, "Oh, yeah, we see this all the time." Like, "Oh, yeah, this happened. Oh, yeah, well," and then
right.
you'll wanna check for a bullet wound, and I'm like, "Oh, have you seen this before?" Because as a normal mom, like, I can't fathom, but our nurses and our doctors, when they see this stuff all the time, it is an automatic no-no, or it is an automatic pool gate, or is it automatic no trampoline roll? Like, for our first responders that see this all the time, like, they understand. So, I think for me, as also a regular mom, but now I have the same mentality as you, is like, actually, no, these things could happen because something happened to me before, it could happen to me again. I try to put that mentality on the moms in TikTok. Like, please understand that this could happen to you. Like, there are not rules. There's no ASTM boards. There's no CPSC for no reason. These things are in place because things have happened bad, you know? So
Yeah, and a quick shout out for the fact that you literally can't keep every
you
accident from
can't,
happening. Like,
exactly.
forever. Like, you have to give your kid a driver's license and let them drive. There's parts of parenting where you have to let them try the bars, right?
Well, it was funny because I think with my son Deacon, I was really like this hippie mom and just like free. And I think with my son Rhett, I was opposite, where I've almost sheltered him too much. I actually had a friend, her son jumped off the sink into a ball pit, and I about had a heart attack. And this is something that happens all the time. And she like looked at me and she was like, "Has he ever in his life worn a band-aid?" And I was like, "He's 4 years old, right? He's never had a Band-Aid." I've never allowed him to get hurt. I've been, like, scared for him to fall off his bike, like, and I'm like, a little bit, like, I have to let him inch out a little bit, and I have to let my paranoia,
Yeah.
like, oh, if my brother wanted to put him up on his shoulders, like, absolutely not. Like, oh, that's like, because I just foresee all these things happening. So I'm getting myself to a place where I'm like, not let me let him get hurt, but, like, it's okay so that he can learn to ride a bike, that he might get a couple scrapes, you know? I'm gonna prevent it as
Yeah.
much as I can, but, you know, I like to tell parents that think in my comments a lot of times, like, "Oh, just supervise your kid." It's you can do a teething necklace as long as you supervise your kid. You have to go to the bathroom. You have to. Like, you have to fill up your water bottle. You're going to have to mix that mac and cheese, right, on the stovetop. You have to change out your laundry. All of these things take 15, 20, maybe 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 minutes. And not saying that you're a bad mom for doing those, like, you have to do those things, but like, that is just enough time for a strangulation to occur from a blind string, right? That's just enough time for the baby to push over a baby gate because you didn't want to bolt it into the wall. Like, it's just enough time for a TV to fall on a kid. Like, so yes, we're not saying you're not supervising your kids, but nobody can supervise their child 100% of the time, 24/7. And these kids, they're quick. They're quick. So, that's just, you know, understand that it's like, no, we know you're supervising your kid, but there's the 15 seconds to a minute of times when you run out and you're not, you know, not leaving the house, but like run to the
Yeah.
laundry room, you know, or turn around.
Well, and I think there's a lot of joy in parenting to know that you've created like kind of a safe space for your kids where they can explore every single DVD that I own, because back in the day my kids wanted to pull out all the DVDs, all the books, right? Like, they can explore that area and you know that you've baby proofed it as good as you could, and they can explore and do stuff, and you're not constantly like, "Oh, not that book. Oh,
Mhm.
not that DVD,"
I
you
love
know.
that too. So we had done something in our house that a baby proofer had recommended, where I'm like, "Oh, he constantly wants to be in the kitchen when I'm in the kitchen and like play with the drawers." And she was like, "Find the furthest cabinet that's like not by the stove or anything and put his plastic plates in there. Let him organize those." So we did that, where it's like we moved up all the cleaning supplies. And that's the one drawer that's not locked because it's baby proofed. He could pull it out. He could pull, he could play it. He could help mom put the dishes, his own things away. But everything else I lock. And then I do like the magnet locks for the alcohol, for the medications and the vitamins. And those should be, higher up. Like I do like the thought of pantry locks, and everyone will find one that they like. They really push those magnet ones, but I have lost the magnet key more times than I can count. No drinking in our house because you can't even find the magnet key. So
Safety first.
yeah, so there's little things that you could do in the kitchen. I think a big one that I think we should talk about is tip overs. I mean, the statistics on these like tip over deaths and incidences is insane to me. I think it was part of the baby proofing group. They were running a campaign for Furniture of America or something like that. And the one rule, I think this is easy for moms to take with them, is if it has a drawer, a door, or a shelf, it should be anchored to the wall. And it took them, so I was on a meeting with the baby proofing group a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about that it took 20 years for the furniture to get in through, I think like ASTM, to have the anchor things on the back of furniture sold. But with that said, a lot of us, like if you're like me, like, hey, I didn't have all this money to be getting new furniture. I got some from my mom. Like I got some from grandma. I got some from Facebook Marketplace, where you're not going to have those anchor things on there to remind you to anchor that to the wall. I did get a dresser recently that did include that, right? So now it's in law, but a lot of us millennials, we're getting our furniture wherever we can. So it's still something that, and there's a ton of different anchoring systems that you could use. You go on Amazon or whatever, that you could use to anchor. Even at Walmart, they have a whole baby proofing section to anchor anything. And this could be your nightstand that weighs 20 pounds. 20 pounds in a 10, 11, 12 pound infant, like that's nothing to mess around with. So
is there a height? Because I didn't do anything that was below waist height.
They actually do. That was one of my questions. And they actually recommend, like, if it lands with a drawer, door, or shelf, that it's anchored. Now, I was just thinking like,
anchored.
Oh, like, these like tall shelves that I have in my room. Like, oh yeah, I'll just anchor those.
Yeah.
They're saying, there was some incidences with nightstands and, so
wow. Kids are crazy out there.
So just anchoring them, and people will say like, I don't, it's a rental, or it's my new house, I don't want to put it. You could fix a hole in your wall, but you cannot fix the hole in your heart if something were to happen, especially on your watch.
Yeah.
So just anchor them. These anchoring systems are really like not that bad in your walls. And they have them for the mirrors. A lot of us girlies on the internet love our mirrors for our selfies. Like they have them for the mirrors. The TVs are a big one. I know in California, I think last year there was 4 deaths just from TV tip overs, at least in my state. So I'm a big fan of anchoring your TV to a wall. Pay the professional $120. It's typically what it costs. Get that anchored to your wall if possible. If not, you have to have it stand on some sort of shelving system or whatever. Make sure that you anchor that to a wall. There's different like rope anchors and stuff like that. They actually come with the TVs typically if you have to do that type of thing. I'm a big fan of anchoring it to the wall or mounting it to the wall if possible. But I believe anchor systems come in the packaging now for people that are going to stand it on a piece of furniture.
Yeah. I will say that even with teens, like they just love to roughhouse, like just anchor to the wall. It's never going to get better.
For sure. So the furniture, working with
and we lived in California, so we were always like earthquake too. Like it's not just a kid climbing on it; they can tip over in an earthquake too, like those tall ones. So we've always been anchorers.
Yeah, big fan of that, and I think more people are doing that. I think back in the day, we had, and this is just like why baby proofing is constantly changing. Is like back in the day, it was those big bulky TVs. Now we have these like skinny tall TVs that just fall over on top of our babies. And I see it all the time on TikTok and like people kind of making jokes about like, oh, this almost fell on my baby, or like, and I'm like, no, that's really serious. Like that could have been really bad. Like people have died that way, So yeah, big fan of anchoring. I was not a fan of anchoring
And if you guys are like big question mark over your brain, especially new parents, go to Home Depot and look at these options, or Walmart apparently. We always went to Home Depot. Look at the options, see which will work if you're in a rental or if you're in a home and you're planning on being there for a long time, then anchor the heck to the stud, right? Just look at your different options because there are
Mhm.
different options out there for anchoring these different things. It's not just like I just like to feel them with my hands and see exactly like what the hole's going to be or whatever it may
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
So, and there's plenty of options. They're getting more innovative as they come. Another one that I kind of wanted to talk about when we're talking about how baby proofing has changed is our, let me pull this out of another computer, is our cords from our phones and our phones and our computers, like the amount of voltage that is going through these things, right? Think about having to put this into your computer or your phone. The amount of voltage is insane. We've never talked about this before. I don't know if you follow Getty's mom, but she's a dentist and the dentists have been seeing all these kids and babies coming in because they're chewing on these things. And the voltage, like even if it's unplugged, the voltage is still like shoots through there. So they're like burning the inside of their mouths and stuff. So she came up with this product called Watch Your Mouth, but it's basically a product that goes, I have videos on this, but it's a product that goes over the top of it. So whether it's unplugged or not, like they put this in their mouth, they're fine.
Yeah, so people that are just listening, it just looks like the top of like a travel
It looks like
toothbrush
a
cover
travel
that goes on the
toothbrush
end.
cover.
Yeah.
That's probably how she figured this out. And it kind of locks over your phone charger. And then when you're using it, it still kind of stays on. It still stays on there, but then you could put it in. So it's just kind of a
Mhm.
reminder, hey, lock it up. But I guess they were seeing all these injuries. And it's like, this is one of those things where it's like, I would have never thought because I've grown up in this
Right.
digital age, but this digital age compared to our parents or even 10, 20 years ago, and even the phones now, like the new iPhone 15 takes the same voltage, or is it the 15, whatever one it is, takes the new 16, I don't know, takes the same voltage as a computer.
Yeah.
And that's just one of those things that it could be really dangerous and we just don't think about it. Another thing to think about when we're thinking about baby proofing and like the new age is a lot of the new homes are being built with pre-existing safety things for the electrical outlets. So they're built like that, right? Where you kind of have to
Uh-huh.
jiggle the plug in there and it kind of opens it up, but your kid can't get hurt. They're built like that. So I'm in a new home build. But with that being said, if I didn't know that and I went to shove in one of those plastic things, they're not recommended at all anymore, that could harm me. You know what I mean? So there's all these new types of electrical options out there that are not the plastic ones. So we're trying to like stay away from that. I wouldn't even know how to explain this one, so I'm not going to try. But there's a lot of new ones out there that aren't the plastic ones that are safety covers for outlets just because of things that we've learned, how our electricity is set up, what's safe and what's not. So something to ask your contractor or when you buy a new home, hey, what kind of outlets are these? What kind of baby proofing electrical things can I use? And they should be able to help you with that if you're getting a new home, which I think a lot of pregnant moms, what do we get? New cars and new homes when a baby comes?
Yeah. And your realtor also might have
Yeah.
an idea. They know a lot about electricity that I'm always like, I didn't know you
Yeah.
knew that.
So
Thank you.
when
Cool,
I
cool.
got my home, they're like, make sure with your baby, you do not put in the plastic things. Like this is already baby proofed. Yeah.
Fancy.
And then I guess another big one is falls. So this is anything from falling downstairs, falling out windows, a couple things that parents could do to avoid this even outside of the baby proofing is don't put furniture where your kid can climb on it and fall off a banister. Don't make it easy for them. So think about what
Yeah.
would be a fun jungle gym for your kid and avoid that away from places that they could fall or away from the windows where they could climb out windows. I'm always a big fan of I don't have one over here, but the window locks where you could lock the window from above so they can't, open it. But if you quickly needed to get
Yeah.
out like in a fire or something, that you could push it and slide it open, but your kid wouldn't be able to do that. There's a ton of window options, but that's something we just do not think about. There's window barriers. That's a big one where it's kind of like these bar things that they put up so that they can't only you could open the window. You don't think about window falls, but these things happen, you know? I would say
Yeah.
the biggest nuance and the hardest thing where you would almost need a baby proofer to come in, and every single household, for every listener right now, every single person listening would need a different baby gate for their stairs. Every
Mm.
single house is designed differently. So there is a baby gate for everyone. It is not a one size fits all. I'll tell you one business I would not want to be in, the baby gate business, because there's no universal baby gate. It is so different by houses, by the width of your stairs, by what's on the other side. It's so different. But I would say the biggest thing is you really want to bolt those in. Those kids can push them down. So the suction ones, I know people love that, the tension ones, but you really want to get the gates that are bolted into the walls. That's going to be, I would say, just do that. But this may be a situation you may want to call out a baby proofer or someone that specializes in those gates if you kind of have a weird house where you're not going to fit the universal safety first ones at Target. And don't feel like if you go bring one home and you're like, wait, this isn't working for me, don't call it quits and say, okay, we're going to have to be careful. There's one out there for you. You just need to find it. And sometimes it's, you know, ordering and returning 15 from Amazon. I had to do that. So that's the hardest part of baby proofing, I would say, is finding the gate that's right for your home. It is the hardest part, but you'll figure it out.
Or maybe just finding a single story home.
That's like where I'm at. We're trying
That's
to
what
move
I'm
right now. I'm
thinking.
like, let's
Yeah.
just like single story. That's like where it's at, right? Yeah. And look
Yeah.
at as moms, like my hips at the end of the night hurt so bad that I don't want to be walking upstairs. I'm 37, but I'm acting these days like I'm 67. Yeah, we're in the market right now for a new house. And I'm like, let's do the single story. That is where it's at for a multitude of reasons, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I think a lot of people just don't think about stairs when you're purchasing the home, like how that's going to end up. Because we had a single story, 1,100 square foot house with 3 kids in California. And then we moved to the double story. But luckily, my kid was old
Yeah.
enough that I just supervised.
Yeah. No, I supervise.
Yeah.
I love when I get the comments on TikTok of like, yeah, so we do that, but we supervise. And I'm like, okay. As if I was telling everybody else that they're a horrible parent. This is they don't supervise. Like, yeah, these things could happen so quick. Another thing is, and this is the American Cleaning Institute. They are doing a lot of work undoing a trend right now, which is very interesting. So on TikTok in the past couple years, so they are doing they're doing like a anti-influenced campaign because of a trend that
Ooh.
happened on TikTok. And you might know what I'm talking about, but it's filling up the glass jars with the pods and filling up the glass jars with all
Oh.
of the laundry detergent things. Those look like candy to kids. And from that trend happening on look at TikTok, we could do TikTok for good all day long. Like the work that you and I do on TikTok it's great. But the work that the fancy influencers with the nice homes in Utah, what they're doing in their laundry rooms, like apparently it caused a little bit of a uptick in calls to the poison
Oh.
control. So it looks great. And I'm one of those moms where I'm like, oh, but it looks so cute to have like this aesthetically pleasing laundry room. I don't believe in aesthetically pleasing laundry rooms. I believe in those are the rooms where everything gets thrown into, right? And you shut the door. But no, so apparently it caused all this uptick in calls to the poison control because these kids were babies where they look like candy. They're, you know,
Right. And the Tide Pod thing at the store anymore has a
well, and
baby
that's
proof
the
thing.
thing.
Like
It's
my dishwasher detergent, it's hard to get
exactly
into. It's Hilary proof at this point.
Tide and like Cascade. Like they did a lot of work on their own to try to undo this issue where the pods now, like the Tide pods, if you really were to, it's hard to break those things. Even if you were to bite on them, it's pretty hard to break those
Mhm.
things, but you never know, you know, and they make safety locks on these products for a reason. And it's so that you use them, not take the pods out and put them in a nice open glass container where they look like Halloween candy. So they're trying to undo this issue that our fellow moms caused through a trend that became a
Yeah.
thing. So a couple things is, you know, put those pods, store them high, don't store them in glass, store, not decor. Okay. Store, not decor. So store them not in glass, put them high up. If your kid wants to help with the laundry, take the wet clothes out and let the kid put the wet clothes in the dryer, right? Let them fold the towels. Like,
Yep.
let them participate. I'm all about like letting kids participate in what you're doing. I think that's great for like growth, but in a safe way. So we don't want them to see those pods either. So keep them stored high. When you get home from the grocery store, so a lot of incidents were happening where mom gets home from the grocery store and leaves everything out for a little bit on the sink and the kids were getting to them and things like that. So just storing them. A dad came through our county and I was working a car seat event and he came in with his kids and he had two, maybe 2 and 4 in his car. And in the middle, he had just gotten some fabric freshener, some Tide Pods, and they were just like in the car. And like the kids were trying to like play with them. So I was
Right.
just saying, like, hey, this isn't something you think of. Like, I throw all this stuff in my car too. I'm like, hey, these things, don't put them around the kids. Like, they're so easy. They look fun for them. They want to pop them. They want to eat them. Like, so it's just, I had to do a little education for him, which he's like, I didn't even think about that. And I'm like, no, I wouldn't have thought about it either. But, you know, American Cleaning Institute is running a big campaign right now trying to get the word out that we are no longer storing our pods in glass jars. So,
Yeah. And I'm here to say that that doesn't last forever, right? Because I need my kids to get in and do their own
yeah.
laundry. So we
Yeah.
don't make them, like if you love that look, there is going to come a point in time where you can then again do that look until you have grandkids and then you're totally screwed again. So I don't know.
And if you do have teens and you want them to do their own laundry, just make sure they're not doing the trends where they eat Tide Pods. That was a thing, I think, in 2021. Yeah, that was crazy. But that's it. It's just these little things that, we just don't think. We think, oh, this is cute. We just don't think about.
Yeah, and I think the other thing we can think about as moms when we're at each other's houses and we see something, I think we should not be afraid to be like, hey, I just saw on TikTok that they're encouraging us not to put them in jars because kids are so attracted to that. And your friend might not have had zero clue, and hopefully you have friends that are willing to say that and you're willing to take that kind of criticism and then decide if that's something you want to do in your house. But if we share with each other, oh, I just saw that that's unsafe, maybe we can save a life.
So I'm so glad you brought up this topic and tell me if I'm rambling because I could stop talking, but how do we talk to our friends about things about safety? This is a question I get all the time. Like one of my best friends is using a teething necklace, so to speak, right? How do we talk to our friends? Because as moms, like you say one thing that's opposite than what I'm doing, I'm feeling attacked.
Right.
Okay. Or, hey, I just wanted that voice, even like I'm feeling I'm attacked. I'm a bad mom. I don't like that. This is uncomfortable for me. So I tell people to do something called the shit sandwich, where you go in and let's say it's the Tide Pods, right?
Right.
Oh my gosh, girl, your laundry room, like this is a dream laundry room. Like this is literally so cute. I cannot believe it. I want to copy everything. And then kind of go up to the pods and be like, oh my gosh, like I just saw this video actually of like these babies are like, or toddlers like climbed up and like ate one. One ended up in the hospital. Like they're trying to warn moms about this. And I'll send it to you because I don't know if you've seen it where the mom's like, you're kind of just, and oh my God, I didn't even think about that. That's what you want to hear, right?
Right.
Sometimes they'll be like, yeah, but I supervise. Like sometimes, and then you kind of just got to let it go. And then you finish up and being like, where did you get these towels? Are these like Nordstrom? These are so cute. Walk away. Like, so the teething necklace, I always tell parents to be like, your kid is so cute. Like, is her hair naturally that curly? Like, oh my gosh, a dream. That's so cute. Like, I love that. And then, hey, one of my friends, I always tell people to say, I'm your friend. One of my friends lost her son to one of those teething necklaces. I don't know if you like heard that story. And then like, no, what happened? Like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to take this off right now. Or it's like, I heard it, but it's like one or two babies died. Like, it's not like, it was probably something else. Like it's a daycare. Like, and you kind of got to move on from there. They know the story. They know the dangers. They're going to do it anyways. Right. But that's one way to do it where you're not coming in and being like, oh, this is your new laundry. Oh, girl. Like, so those are bad.
Right.
There's a way to come about it where, so you compliment, right? So the shit sandwich, compliment, criticize, compliment.
Right. Like in HR, like when you're a manager. Yeah.
Yep. It's the same thing. So like that has seemed to, I feel like work really well.
Yeah.
Is that way of providing information.
Well, and I always just come at, this is the paranoid nurse in me talking. That's usually how I start the thing. And then just be like, I think you're a great mom. I made so many mistakes as a mom.
I had a mom with Rhett. She on TikTok. I was pushing him in the stroller. He was buckled into his car seat, but it was very loose. And she reached out to me. This was the best thing she could have done. She was a CPST and she was like, "Hey, I'm a CPST. I have this little PowerPoint. I just wanted to send it to you and just see if like maybe go through it and just see if you're like, it's kind of like a checklist, just like if it's all the things that you're doing when you're putting him into the car seat." I was like, sure, send it. But like in my mind, I'm like, oh, she's trying to call me out on something. Like, send your little PowerPoint, right? Like, I will go through. This is so dumb. Like, people on TikTok are just criticizing me, like, for every little thing. So I'm going through and I get to slide number 9. I specifically, and I remember like 1 through 8, I'm like, do that, do that. Like, this is so stupid. I get to slide number 9 and it's something called the pinch test, which is like what CPSTs check. And it's if you could pinch that strap, it's too loose.
Yeah.
So I am like, oh my gosh, I never tighten his straps that tight because I'm worried about his chest, you
Right.
know? And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, you know what? I was kind of rude and like, I didn't thank you for that PowerPoint, but I was not doing the pinch test. She's like, oh, I was hoping you'd see slide number 9. So you know what I mean? But like, I'm like, oh my gosh, we get so worried about being like doing something wrong that we're a bad mom. But I'm like, there's mom shaming and there's life saving, and we need to make sure that we could differentiate the two, you know? So you want to go shame a mom because she can't breastfeed or she's choosing not. That is shaming. You are shaming a mom. You want to tell a mom like, hey, I noticed that you're maybe not tightening your car seat so much. Here's a PowerPoint. Like, oh my God, you may have just saved my baby's life. You know, those are two different things. Like, you shame a mom for going to work or not going to work. That is shaming. So as long as we know the difference between two, and I think when child safety isn't a parenting choice, as it should be a parenting mandate for a lot of these things, you know, especially when it comes to like car seats, and that's my personal opinion of what's a parenting choice. Yeah, a parenting choice is, you know, whether we're going to homeschool or not. That's a parenting choice.
Yeah.
A parenting mandate is like, yeah, we're going to follow the law and make sure that our kid is rear facing till at least 2 years old. Like these are things that should be like pretty black and white, but I think sometimes we just put into this bucket of you're mom shaming. And it's like, no, we're just warning because this could be a life-saving situation.
You just never know. And
You never
we
know.
all got to like put down our hackles when people are like, oh, you know, maybe you could do it this way. I get it. You're like, you're already overwhelmed as a parent. You have so much stuff on your plate. Sleep is a huge issue for new moms. You're just like, I'm just trying to make it work for us, right? And just put it into like, okay, that's some good information. Same for your pediatrician. Pediatricians are not out there to shame parents. They're just giving information, and then you take it and you use it in your life however you're going to see fit. Because it does look different for everybody, right? Everybody's baby gate's different. Everyone, how you're going to cover your electrical outlets is different. Everyone, how you're going to tell your kids, you know, you shouldn't do that is different. So, yeah.
For sure. And I think with the pediatricians too, I was thinking about it one day. I was so worried. My son Rhett was in the lower, he was a 9-pound 2-ouncer when he was born. Both of my kids were. And I was so worried about, but he lost weight. So he's always been in like, at one point he was like in the 3rd percentile. But I was like, it's not that she's shaming me, right? This is his weight, right? Like she's not shaming me. And I would go, and even now I go to his birthday checkups, right? And I'm like, oh, what is she going to say about his weight? And it's just like, okay, am I feeding him? Am I doing my best to like feed him? And like, I'm giving the vitamins that I'm being told, and I'm doing all the things. Like, I'm doing my best. Like, whatever his weight is, his weight is.
Yeah. And maybe she has some great tips that would work.
And that's the thing. So it was like, let me just be open to the cottage cheese and more olive oil. You know, it's like so she's always like, cottage cheese, man. I'm like, we don't even have dairy in our house, because I have like a weird dairy allergy. But it's just like things like that where I'm like, I became more open to like, the pediatrician is not shaming me as she's giving me suggestions, but it is hard as a mom. With my first, I had started off like co-sleeping because why not? And didn't know, like, that's the natural way. And the doctor was like, there's never going to be a day I'm going to tell you that that's safe. And I have a lot of moms that are like, how do I unco-sleep? And I'm like, that is one of the hardest things to do. But the fact that it's in your mind, you're going to get this, you know? I had a mom reach out and she's like, I just came across one of your videos about bed sharing. I was talking about one of my friends who lost a baby, and she's like, I don't even know where to start. I don't even have a pack and play. I sent her a pack and play. I'm like, start with pack and play. Put it by the bed. You don't need a $500 crib.
Yeah.
Um, it's just one of those things is it's something like it's unlearning some of these things where it's just like you didn't know. And I was in the Facebook mom groups that I was in, the best option was bed sharing. Then we're saying co-sleeping, but we mean bed sharing. But the Facebook mom groups that I'm in, like that's the best option.
Right. Because people that are safety minded just don't hang out there. We lose our minds.
Yeah, so and that's the thing, we have to understand that I could find an article to validate you could find an article out there to validate anything that you believe in. You wanna
Yeah.
do meth and breastfeed? There's an article out there to support that, I'm sure of it. And that's why that was, like, extreme. But that is why but I swear, I've seen some crazy stuff. And that is why, like, we stick to our pediatricians, the AAP recommendations, La Leche League. Like, we stick to the professionals that are doing the work. You know what I mean? And that are doing
Yeah.
the studies and the numbers. Like, we stick to those people. Not we Googled, hey, is it okay for me to take 4 shots of tequila and breastfeed my baby? Because you will find Emily Oyster, she will say that's okay. But you will find somebody out there to say that that's totally fine. You will find people say, hey, how you feel is how your baby feels. I mean, you probably know more on that than I do. I don't drink alcohol, so it's nothing that I've come across, but I see this stuff and I'm like, what is the AAP and the professionals saying, you know?
Well, and the big problem is like sometimes I have AI write an article for fun,
Oh,
like
yeah.
drinking in pregnancy. They were like, do it. Get in there, drink during pregnancy. So it created the article. I just had it write it for fun, not the article I used in case
Yeah.
anyone's on my website. But yeah, it was just like drinking is going to be great. It'll help relax you during your pregnancy. And I was like, there is not a single institution, the ACOG, AAP, any of those people that say any amount of alcohol is safe during pregnancy. So AI just was like, sure. And then one time I was like, is sour cream safe in pregnancy? Had it right. And he was like, it will cause miscarriages and your baby will die. So
Well, and that's
the problem is those articles are getting written out there because that's how people write articles anymore, is using AI.
and AI, I think, is going off of some of these bigger, more searched or read articles. So
Yeah.
it's saying like, oh, these are more viewed. This must be the appropriate information. Where I did a TikTok to show people like, if you type in AAP, it's 10 down on the list on Google.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're not running ads so that they're the first thing to pop up. So if we were to type in, I would wish if people were to type in like, you know, baby proofing, that the Baby Proofers of America would pop up. But, you know, what's going to happen is someone that's coming up with some product that they're trying to sell that's like maybe not the best. It's just like you really got to know, I think, and you should probably do an article on that. Like, who are the people that I would follow or articles that I would read when it comes to breastfeeding? Like, where are the
Right.
articles I would read when it comes to baby proofing? Like, that would be a great article for you to write. Like, what, like, if
Trusted people to follow.
trusted
Because you really
people
have to
for,
find a source that is not going to give you just pure crap.
yeah, for
'cause they're out
certain
there for sure.
certain topics, you know, I like right now and maybe I'm just landing on the side of TikTok is like the home birth of it all. And I saw a video. I saw a video yesterday and this was a dead serious video and everybody agreed with her in the comments. The video was, what happens if my baby is born not breathing? And the doula, big time doula on TikTok was like, we do a meditation over
You
the
didn't
baby.
watch the whole thing, Danny. I saw your comment because she
Oh,
then
did I
said,
not?
just kidding. Yeah, she
Oh
said,
my
just kidding.
gosh,
They do use.
stop. Okay, you can't. Okay. Oh my God. You literally, I was going to stitch the video because I was like, no, immediately blocked her. Okay. So why
No,
are
she
they
did
doing
say
that?
that they do different things. But then some of the stuff she was saying, I was like, okay, I've never seen a baby come in with a UVC from home.
Well, I scrolled through a little bit to see if there was a joke. And then I saw, she said meditation, and then we have the
Yeah.
mom just talk to the baby. And I was like,
Well,
wait, no, could never be
let's
me.
talk
Like,
about
look
trying
it.
to get a secure seal on the baby while the mom is like, if the baby's on, you can't.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, my son Deacon was
Uh-huh.
born with the low blood sugar. And I, you know, at that time I wanted to do a home, like that was going to be the vibe, is like a home birth or something. But he was born with the low blood sugar. And I remember the nurse being like, popping a bottle of formula in his mouth. And I was like, oh, I'm breastfeeding. Like the pitchforks came out like I'm having epidural and I'm like, I want to fight this lady. And she was like, if we do not give this to him, like he will die. Well, he gets taken to the NICU and I asked the doctor who was like stitching me up, I said, what would have happened had I had a home birth? Because how did they test for the blood sugar? He just like stitching me up. He's like, yeah, I would
There
have
is
probably died.
stuff you can tell.
I
They
was
get
like,
jittery and stuff. Yeah.
okay. So I was like, wait, what? Anyways, after that, I was like, I guess there's just things like you wouldn't know. Like, I have a friend that had the shoulder dystocia thing. I never heard of that before, actually. And so I'm like, wait, what? And there was like 5 nurses pouncing on her or something. Like, obviously, I wasn't there. So I was like, what happens if you have one person in the house? How do they get the baby out? So these fears have been instilled in me. And for that reason, I will have the closest room to the NICU and as many doctors that want to be in there as possible.
That might not be the best room for you. You just never know. Like, what's the angle trying to get out of that room into the NICU? Sometimes you want a nice large angle.
Yeah, I'm gonna go and just really I'm God willing, I'm getting married in a week or so, and then the baby making is happening. So send me all the baby dust. But yeah, I'll have to go to the hospital and just see what's the quickest route for
Yeah.
that.
Ask the NICU nurses, which is the easiest one for you to get to.
Yeah. I'm gonna request. I'm gonna put in a
The thing
request.
is, most people don't need that.
No.
Right? That's how baby proofing works. That's how the hospital works. Most patients don't need this. It's just when we do need it, that's why you need like all the things. That's why you need the baby proofing, because you literally cannot watch that baby. You can't supervise them 24/7.
I like to tell people these things are an insurance policy, right?
Yeah.
We'd probably be perfectly fine. Like, and not every baby that bed shares dies, right? It's an insurance policy to do these things. And maybe you don't need to use it. We don't hope to get in a crash. We don't hope to be in a situation where something bad would happen or our kid would climb on the TV. We don't hope to get ourselves in those situations. But in chance we get in a car accident, we have car insurance. And by chance our baby, walks up the TV like it was mounted. So it's just
Yeah.
insurance. These things are just all insurance policies that we invest into and just in case. That's how I like to describe it.
Yeah. And somehow we all made it to adulthood, and I was laying on the bottom of the car as a kid. So I have no idea
Oh
how
yeah,
I
my
made it.
mom was like, we had these milk boxes and we just put my mom had like one of 8. She's like, we had the babies were put in the milk boxes with like a little blanket right there, and we put them in the back of like the Wagoneer. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
and we just put all the babies back there in the Wagoneer. And I'm like, okay, we have come a long way. So when people say, well, we've been doing this for ages, and I'm like, yeah, and for ages, people were dying. So for ages, we have been improving these things. But yeah, when my mom tells me the ways of how she grew up, I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy to me.
Yeah. That's why we put him in the car seat, just in case. All of this car seat is such a normal thing now. I
Mhm.
wonder what things were like when they just started using car seats. But yeah, car seat's just one of the baby proofing things we do.
Yep.
Thank you for coming on, Dani. I think this is going to be super helpful for new parents, pre-existing parents, because a lot of times when you have that baby, that toddler suddenly has access to a lot of stuff because you're so busy. So it's a great time to think about, oh, what can the other one get into now that I can't supervise as well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So find Dani. It's at Dani Morin, right? On
Yeah,
TikTok.
if you just type in at Dani Morin on TikTok or Instagram, I'll pop up. You always know when someone started TikTok not trying to be an influencer when they got numbers behind their name. So I'm at Dani Morin 13, just regular schmegular, whatever TikTok gave me at the time. And I just never changed it because I think it keeps me humble. I've come up with all these names that I wanted to like name myself, like, the child advocate and stuff like that. And I'm like, you know what, Dani Morin 13, that's the name TikTok gave me, and I'm sticking with it.
You're sticking with it.
So yeah, so you find me on the IG. If you have questions, DM me on the IG. I don't know what's going on with TikTok. You know this actually. I am not getting DMs there. So if you have a specific question, you want to send me a link to a baby proofing thing that you're thinking of using, just shoot it over to me via a DM
On Instagram, not
on
TikTok. Yeah.
Instagram. Yes.
All right. Good luck with your wedding. Good luck keeping us all informed. This doesn't come out till the spring, so maybe you'll already be pregnant by then and people can find you stressing out
Yeah.
about pregnancy on social media.
Yeah, I'll have you do an update. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Dani.
Awesome. Thank you so much for letting me come on and do what I do in my son Deacon's name. It means a lot.
Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was a little longer than our usual one, but since Dani and I are friends, hopefully you guys enjoyed the banter, because I hope you're just thinking like, I'm just sitting there with a friend and we're trying to make good choices for our babies. And sometimes we don't have all the information, but maybe a friend has some of the information. Again, not here to shame anybody. You're looking at a mom who had baby bumpers, mobile right over the crib, probably cords, who knows? I'm saying that we can do better than we're doing today, hopefully, and hopefully that inspired you to do just that. Stay tuned. We are talking about taking a hospital tour next week, and then the week after that, we are talking about your smelly fridge, and I'm going to have some tips on making it smell better. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining us on the Pulling Curls podcast today. If you liked today's episode, please consider reviewing, sharing, subscribing. It really helps our podcast grow. Thank you.